Few figures shine as brightly as Joan of Arc. From humble beginnings to the battlefields of France, her journey, fueled by faith and determination, made her a beacon of hope for an entire nation. In this video, we'll journey with Joan, exploring her rise, her challenges, and her undying legacy that continues to inspire many today. But before we get into it, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And if you want to get notified every time I upload a new video, click the bell icon as well. It really helps me out, and I appreciate it a lot. All right, let's get started. Joan of Arc, known by many as Jeanne la Pucelle or Joan the Maid, faced a tragic end in May 1431. She went from being just a peasant girl who couldn't read or write to leading the French army in a few years. People around the world remember her as a young warrior wearing white armor, a symbol of faith, and someone who broke the usual rules of her time. On the day of her execution, English soldiers forced her towards a pile of wood. This wood would soon be set on fire, ending her life. In those final moments, Joan wished for something to hold on to, something that symbolized her faith. A kind man from the crowd made a quick cross from a stick and gave it to her. She took it, whispered a prayer, and hid it close to her heart. As the fire began, she looked at a big cross a priest was holding up for her. Even with the fire roaring around her, people could hear her strong voice praying loudly. It's heartbreaking to think of her journey. A brave young woman who believed in her mission so much met such a tragic end. The man she helped become king even let her down. But in those final moments, with flames around her, she held on to her faith. When Joan was just 13, something extraordinary happened. She began hearing voices. Now, these weren't just any voices. She truly believed they were from God, and they weren't just chatting about the weather. These voices told Joan she had a big job to do. Get the English out of France. You see, during that time, a big chunk of France was under English control. They had some French buddies called the Burgundians, and together they were quite the force. The poor fellow who was supposed to be the King of France, Charles of Valois, was left out in the cold because of a peace deal between the English and the Burgundians. But Joan, with her strong belief and voices guiding her, had a vision. She saw Charles as the rightful King of France. So, with all the courage in the world, young Joan approached Charles in February 1429. She said, "Give me an army, and I'll show the English the door." Sounds crazy, right? But Charles, even when many told him it was a bad idea, decided to trust Joan. And guess what? In March, with Joan leading, they achieved a huge win. The city of Orleans, which was under siege by the English, was freed. But as with all great stories, Joan's rapid rise and her mysterious voices drew both fans and foes. Some were in awe of her, while others, even from her own side, grew wary. Life is unpredictable. One moment, Joan was a hero, and the next, she faced one of her most challenging times. While bravely defending a place called Compiègne, Joan had an unlucky fall from her horse. The Burgundians, allies to the English, seized this opportunity and captured her. Things went downhill pretty quickly after that. The English believed Joan's victories weren't just because of her leadership skills. They thought she had some kind of magical powers. And because of that, they slapped her with some heavy accusations, witchcraft and being against the church, just to name a few. It's sad to think that the very same people she fought against were now framing her as an enemy of God. The English were so convinced that Joan was using dark magic that the Duke of Bedford even called her a friend of evil spirits. And here's the kicker. Remember Charles, the guy Joan helped become king? Instead of stepping in to save her, he looked the other way. Charles's advisors thought Joan was getting a bit too influential, so he chose not to save her, even though it was a common practice to negotiate in such situations. Jean Massieu, a priest who was with Joan during her final moments, shared a touching story about her last words. As the flames rose, Joan called out, "Jesus," with all her might. It's heart-wrenching to think about the brave girl, who once led armies, now at the mercy of the very same enemy she fought against. But here's a surprising twist. The man who started the fire that ended Joan's life Felt so bad about it that he believed he had made a terrible mistake. He needed a lot of drinks to calm down and even said he might have killed someone truly holy. Joan's legend, as it turns out, was just beginning. After Joan's tragic end, you'd think that would be the last we'd hear of her, right? But no, her story was far from over. Almost 20 years after her death in 1450, King Charles VII felt a pinch of regret, maybe? He ordered a deep dive into Joan's trial, and guess what? They found some fishy stuff. This opened doors for more investigations into what really went down during her trial. A big one came in 1455 when Pope Calixtus III decided to have another look. This was no small thing. It was a full-blown retrial. The verdict? Joan was innocent of all those accusations thrown at her earlier. That's right, she wasn't guilty of witchcraft or going against the church. With each passing year, Joan's fame didn't fade. It flourished. People started to see her not just as a warrior, but as someone special, someone touched by God. And in 1920, the big recognition came. Pope Benedict XV said, "You know what? Joan is a saint." And just like that, Joan of Arc became a Catholic saint. Now, historians still chat about how big a role Joan played in the war between England and France. But here's the thing. She was the spark that brought hope. She rallied an army, lifted the siege of Orleans, and gave France the push it needed against the English. Even though the war went on for more than 2 decades after Joan's death, her influence was undeniable. Today, she's not just remembered as a warrior or a saint, she's France's patron saint, a symbol of hope and bravery for all. Joan's story reminds us of the resilience of the human spirit and the power of belief. From a young peasant girl to a revered saint, her tale is a testament to the impact one person can have on the fate of a nation. If you like what I do in here, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, if you have some anime that you'd like me to cover, write it down in the comment section. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.